Alright, today we're going to learn about bread, yeasted bread. We're going to start by measuring out our ingredients. You're going to need a medium-sized bowl, a scale, I get a glass of water, some yeast, salt, and some flour. So I'm going to talk about all the things as we go along, but these are the key things you're going to need. This is what we call real bread. Real bread consists of flour, water, salt, and yeast. Okay, the four key ingredients in any bread. So, start off with 200 grams of flour. We have 144 grams of water, and we're going to weigh in here 4 grams of yeast and 4 grams of salt. When you're adding your ingredients, it's a good habit to always add your ingredients on opposite sides so they don't mix together right away in the bowl. So you'll see here I have the salt on one side and yeast on the other side, because the salt will affect the yeast in some ways, and water. Now, I find it really handy if you have a scraper or something like this, you can use a scraper. If you have a KitchenAid machine, you can dump all the ingredients into your KitchenAid machine and mix it through this way. But I'm going to show you how to do it by hand before we start doing it any other way. Okay, so round scraper, or if you're using hand, you can just dunk in 3 fingers and start mixing it around. Or if you're using a scraper, we're just going to mix it with that. So here I go, just mix all the content together. Just keep turning upside down inside the bowl as you go. Once you've got it all come together, you can set it out on a work surface. Try to clean your bowl out as best you can, something like this. And then I have another scraper here, just a flat scraper to help me clean off my scrapers. You want to make sure that you don't leave any bits of yeast left. There is only a little bit, 4 grams of yeast, so if you leave some on your scraper inside that bowl, you'll have issues with it rising. Okay, so measure out your ingredients. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use oil. I'm just going to put just a little bit of oil down on the table to knead on, rather than flour. This is a common misconception, you should sprinkle flour all over the surface. What that does is it actually changes the ratio of the bread. Okay, so bread is all about flour-water ratios for its hydration. So don't add flour. So we're going to start kneading. To knead, I'm going to use the palm of my hand, and I'm going to use 3 fingers from my non-dominant hand to kind of hold down the back, and then use the palm of my hand to stretch out the dough, like so. You'll notice it tears and rips really easy at the beginning. We're just going to bring it back on top, turn it, push it out. I'm going to keep doing this motion, pushing it out and pulling it back. Okay, just using my back fingers to kind of hold it in place. Just my palm is the focus of the kneading. Okay, just back and forth. We're going to knead this for about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. And as you get more experience, you'll be a lot better at it. You'll probably be closer to the 8 minutes than the 10-minute mark. Okay, so talking about flour. So I said you needed bread flour or strong flour. And the reason being is that it has a higher gluten content. Gluten content is really important for bread making, as it's what makes it stretchy and elastic. Okay? So bread flours are going to be anywhere from 11 to 14% in terms of the protein content, which is what makes gluten. So it's really important you get the right flour. You're not using plain flour or cake flour, but bread or strong flour. Talking about the yeast, we added yeasted here. Yeast is really important. I really like this brand called Instant. You can find it in some grocery stores, or definitely in your local bakery shops. A lot of them will use it. But there's different kinds of yeast. So we're using instant yeast, which is great. You can just dump it in and away you go. You don't have to worry too much about anything else. You just dump it in. However, if you add active dry yeast, you would have to measure out your liquid separately and then add your yeast in there and allow it to activate, froth up. You can read the packaging and it'll tell you how to do so. Usually you set it inside the water, which is lukewarm or tepid, around 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, and you add in the yeast and let it sit for roughly 20 minutes. You'll see it froth up and it's good to go. You might also come across natural yeast, which comes in like a paste form. It's not as potent as these other ones, so you'll need to add double the amount though. So I'm just kneading. At the beginning, you're gonna notice it's really sticky. Your hands are gonna get sticky and you're gonna be like, oh, I think I need to add flour. Again, do not add flour. Just keep working through. After about 5 minutes, you're gonna notice the consistency of the bread change. Just using the stickiness of the dough to help pull it back. Work out. You can switch between arms if you want as well. Not a big deal. One hand is getting tired, you can work out the other one. So we're 3 minutes in here. It is going to take a little bit of effort, time, get a little bit of an arm workout.
Watch how I knead the dough. Use the palm of your hand to push out the dough and your fingers to flick it back, and then continue the process. Every once in a while you need to make sure that you turn the dough. Now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what's going on inside of the dough as we're kneading. All wheat flours contain two main proteins called glutenin and gliadin. In the presence of water, these two proteins change shape and bond together. This creates an elastic network of proteins called gluten. This gluten has the ability to trap air much like a balloon. The gluten network fills with swollen starch granules and gas bubbles that allow the bread to rise. After finishing 10 minutes of kneading, it's time to clean your hands so we can shape the dough.
So just get as much as you can off, and then you can just go ahead and rub your hands back and forth to try and clean them off as best as possible. And then just get all those little bits into your dough. No need to waste them. Okay, now we're going to shape it.
Start shaping the dough by pushing it down with your fingertips into a disc-like shape. Next, you're going to lift it up to make sure it's not sticking to the table and flip it over. Now we need to create tension on the upside. Take the outside edge of the dough and pull it to the center, creating a V-like shape. Now, take the edge of the V and pull it to the center and continue all the way around the dough until you've created a nice round ball. This will create tension on the opposite side. Next, we're going to pinch it together in the center and flip it over. If it sticks to the table when you're flipping it, don't worry, just use your fingers to turn it over as easy as you can. Now we're going to take our hands and we're going to move them from the left and right hand side, pulling them to the center and then moving one forward and one backwards. Make sure your fingers touch underneath. This will help tighten the dough and seal it from underneath. Be sure you don't move your hands like this. Just come from left to right and move forward and backwards. As you continue, you're pulling the dough underneath, and when you push it forward and backwards, it seals it. Continue to do so until you have a nice, round, smooth shape.
Next, you will take your bowl. I like to add just a little bit of oil into the bowl, spread it around. Tap it on the surface, pick it up, place it inside.
Now that you're finished with the dough and placed it in the bowl, it's time to cover it up with some cling film or a towel to allow it to proof. This is important that you cover it so it doesn't dry out and create any crust on the surface. Proofing can happen in a number of ways. You can leave it at room temperature and wait till it doubles in size, or if you're under time constraints and you want to be done within about 30 minutes, put it in your oven at about 45 degrees Celsius, or if you have a proofer, you can set it in there. If you don't wish to get your hands dirty, you can do everything we've just done by hand in the KitchenAid stand mixer. Be sure to use a dough hook and not a whisk or the cake attachment. When you're mixing, start on a low to medium speed and don't go any higher. Still knead it for 8 to 10 minutes and then shape it like I showed you earlier.